Thank you for making time. I know you're extremely busy, and especially thank you because today is a really important episode to me. It's the last time I'm going to be doing Live with Leanne. So I thought, what better way than to go out than with my friend Bertrand.
Thank you.
So I'm going to be directing my eyes here because I have my tripod here so I can see the comments and so that everybody can interact with you and with me. So good morning to all the live viewers. So glad you guys are hopping on this morning for our final episode of Live with Leanne, episode number 150. I thought that felt like a serendipitous number as well. 150 episodes. It's time for me to try new things, for you to try new things, and for us all to try new things together. But let's make today the most special episode. I'm already feeling emotional because so many people who have been writing me messages from all over everywhere. And so I'm going to do my best not to cry. But if I do cry, my mascara is not waterproof, so let's try to be okay. There's comments. I'm going to read them, and I'm going to ask you questions. Yes, people are. Karen's here. She says good morning. Andy says
good morning.
Hi. Artie's here, of course. Artie is my most important person here because she's always putting the links to our conversation. We'll need you to put links to everything that's happening with the Cathedral, Artie, today. Anderson, of course, is here from the UK. Tuesdays will be the same, he says. It's true, Anderson. This is our last episode of Live with Leanne. So I know you've been one of the most loyal viewers, so thanks for that. Lots of people are watching. Thanks for watching. Please stick around. Please share this video. It is our final episode of Live with Leanne, and I just want us to have a fun time this morning in the usual tradition of fun. Good morning from Caroline. Good morning, my friend. Cookie's here. My wife is, supposed to be teaching, and she says hi. Get back to work, Cookie. Stop talking to me. Jen is here. Jen, we missed you at Supper Club last night. And lovely Elizabeth says good morning, Leanne and Bertrand. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here. So much joy for me to always connect with you in this way. So let's start our chat with Bertrand. If you're feeling up to it, Bertrand, let's start our chat. Hello, Mark from New Brunswick, as usual. And good morning to Jonathan White. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're watching from. And good morning to Jana. All right, so I have questions for Bertrand. Feel free to ask questions to the Dean of Christ Church Cathedral if you have any for him or for me. This is always, as you know, is a conversation. It's not a monologue. So we invite you to chime in with anything you might feel inclined to share this morning. I love the hearts. Keep those coming. I need all the support I can get this morning. So good morning to you, Bertrand, from Karen. You met Karen at the Pride service last year.
Of course, yes, I remember. I know Karen. I see her face on Facebook popping up all the time.
Yes, I love that. I love how we have all made these connections on here, some very meaningful connections just through our Facebook relationship. So
yeah.
Let's talk about how you've been doing. I know it's been a long road. We've all been in a period of isolation, and I wanted to just ask you how you've been doing. What impact has this period of isolation had on your prayer life? How have you been holding up?
Well, it's been, I think it's been a bit of a journey, like for everyone else, really. When we had the announcement initially of the confinement, well, not so much the confinement, but when everything started to happen, I was just about to return back from a holiday visiting my husband in London, and I had to plan the closure of the cathedral on the Friday. I flew into Montreal airport on a Saturday, and I think. Actually, I was flying back from Paris because I visited my mother. And in Paris, there was already a sense of something, but still the airport was quite busy. And I flew into Montreal in a completely empty Elliott Trudeau airport, which was quite astonishing, really. And that's when it really dawned on me that something was really going on. And I got home and, of course, preparing to be quarantined anyway. I don't think there was a mandatory requirement at the time, but we were quite clear we didn't want to take any risk whatsoever for anyone else, never mind for me. And when I got into my apartment, I had a real sense of deep prayer. It's very difficult to explain, to be honest, but I had a real sense of a shifting of space and time, and a real sense of being unfolded in God, really. And it was quite extraordinary. And I mean, I think I've always had the kind of monastic streak in my life, and that's been something that's followed me for a long time. But I thought, fine, perhaps this is, I mean, from the beginning, despite the awfulness of what was going on around, I certainly felt that perhaps it was a real opportunity to get back to the essential, and so prayer time and silence and living simply were something that I embraced, and it's been I think it's been quite a period of, I would say, growth, maybe certainly ruminating, germinating, I suppose, alongside with the spring that was coming on, really, but a real sense of inner transformation, perhaps. And yes, I think so. And so, like many others, I guess, I mean, I didn't need to go and shop online. I read more books. I did more stuff that was nourishing. I was also exhausted, because it's exhausting to spend a lot of time on Zoom, of course, or on well, not on your lovely program, Leanne, of course, but yes, chairing meetings on Zoom is demanding. So, but yeah, I think it has been a real recentering of purpose, and for me, that's been a good thing.
So if you're just hopping on, welcome. This is the final episode of Live with Leanne, and I'm here with the Dean of the Cathedral, with Bertrand Olivier, and we're talking. I just asked Bertrand to share a little bit about how the impact of this period of isolation has had, what impact it's had on his spiritual life. And I know that as we've been gathering as a supper club community every week throughout this period, it's been really interesting to watch that transformation. We've been sort of, we started off in a very sort of fearful spot. I mean, I certainly was fearful because I was, I had COVID and I was scared, and my prayer life was like shot, and I wasn't praying, and I felt and everybody else's prayers carried me. And I think I've spoken about that before. So but now it feels like the arc is sort of shifting, and people have really been describing that they've had really profound encounters with God and with community in this really sort of surreal way, in this surreal time. So I'm encouraged to learn that has sort of also been your experience, Bertrand.
I mean, I also, like everyone else, I had great intentions of, certainly even in prayer life, going back to a more structured and more regular structured prayer in my house. I rearranged my little prayer altar and my prayer stool and all that. And but of course, it didn't quite pan out like that, because the busyness soon invaded our home territories. And that's something that I found really, really difficult. I mean, initially I had my computer, I brought my second screen, and all that was in my living room. And so on my dinner table, and so, dinner, time, whatever, everything was conflated into one. And suddenly you had these hundreds of people into your living room. And I found that really, really hard to deal with, because home for me is a sanctuary, and life is busy. And home is, I guess, where and I'm quite an extrovert, but I also need the nurturing of a space where I'm in quiet. And so I did move my computer back I've got a small office at the back of the house, which actually has the sun all afternoon, so it's lovely, but it's a little more compact than my living room. But I did that because I wanted to separate the space, and I think that was advice that we all receive, how to organize ourselves in the time when we're working from home all the time, or for those of us who are working from home.
It's true. The lines are kind of blurred, which can be a bit of a challenge as well. So Mark Dunwoody, of course, who was somebody who we started pioneering this medium together several years ago now. He wants to know if it's true that I've been signed with Spotify. Mark, I have not been signed with Spotify. So you can just put those rumors to bed. Okay, that's not happening. I'm just not doing this particular program anymore, but I will be, other things will come up, and Spotify is not one of them yet, unless it's anybody's
Really?
Spotify, feel free to reach out to me. You never know what will happen. My favorite thing about Mark is all the jokes, of course. Mark was always a jokester. All right, so you guys, definitely thank you for being here. Mark's put a whole bunch of bags of money in the comments. Definitely feel free to ask any questions to our dean, the dean of the cathedral. Bertrand Olivier is with me this morning, and I'm Leanne Matthews. This is Live with Leanne, and here I am doing the final episode. Loving how many of you are with us. Definitely feel free to interact. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know how you are, and we'd love to be able to talk to you as well as hear from you. Can you, Bertrand? I only see the cathedral. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm really sorry. My internet has come back. I think I'm going to go back to my other camera, which would be slightly better view. So I'm doing the transfer as we speak.
It says I'll let you into the other.
Yeah.
You're asking for admittance?
Yeah.
All right. There we are. Chris Berger is watching. Dorothy Wilson is watching. And not yet to Spotify. Absolutely not. All right, you guys. And Nikki's here. So many of you are hopping on. Final episode of Live with Leanne, episode number 150. I'm here with the dean. I have more questions for the dean. If you have any for him, please feel free to put them into the comments. That's lovely. You look lovely. The lighting, everything is better. Good.
Thank you.
Zoom is a bit harder to get. I hear that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about, I know that one of the things that's been very apparent to me is, I'm sure many people all around, everywhere, because you guys have so many followers on the Cathedral's Facebook page. Let's talk a little bit about how the Cathedral has adapted to digital ministry. I want to know what's been hard. I want to know what surprised you. I want to know what has blessed you. Let us in, give us the inside scoop, because you guys have been working tirelessly.
Well, we were faced with a situation, of course, just before I was leaving Paris, where we had no idea what was happening. But clearly, we knew that we were going to have to close for worship in person in a building. So we started with keeping the building open for a few days, and it became clear that was not going to happen at all. And the team got together, and we were very clear that what we felt was needed at the time was to maintain the community and the community spirit. I have in my previous church life experienced live streaming for many years. I installed a live streaming system in my previous church. And that was, of course, a wonderful gift, but live streaming is very one way and has advantages and disadvantages. But because I and others on the team, like Deborah, had experience of Zoom, we knew that we wanted to try and shift our services to a medium that would allow people to continue to participate and to do their readings and to sing and to do all sorts of things. And so we immediately, as the word goes now on all those lovely blogs from Zoom, we pivoted our business to Zoom. And from the second Sunday, after all this was happening, we had a whole program of worship for Sunday, of course, 8, 9, and 10:30. Moved to Zoom, and we managed to contact all our parishioners either by email, or those for whom we didn't have email, we operated a telephone tree, and so a number of volunteers called all the people for whom we had telephone numbers to alert them to what was going on, to check whether they had email addresses, and if they didn't have email or digital, to teach them how to either get onto the Zoom worship by telephone, or if they had digital, to tell them how to either download the app or to know what to do. And from the word go, we had full services as if there had been no interruption, which was a great blessing to the team to see that that was if I say a decision that was paying off, while of course noticing that there was a number of people whom we saw regularly in the cathedral on Sundays were not with us, and these were the people who were not necessarily quite so near to the core, for whom we didn't have email addresses or contact details, and yet we would chat and say goodbye at the end of services on the way out from the cathedral. So we've kind of grieved and reflected on that since, and we're still trying to think about how we might reconnect to our mission as a place of worship for all those who come to downtown Montreal, and to find a way in which we can re-engage and re-invite people to join us in that way. We also, I think we went into overdrive, to be honest, because then we also decided to offer at least 2 community contact points every day of the week. So we created a virtual coffee morning every morning at 10 o'clock and virtual tea afternoon every afternoon of the week, and gathered some volunteers to really facilitate discussions, either theme discussions or just general discussions. And we also included some extra midweek prayers in the morning and in the evening, and a compline. And I think we threw ourselves into business, but it really, really helped to bring people together, to keep people together, to keep a real corporate sense of the Cathedral community. And that's been tremendous. We obviously had to, having been ready for Holy Week and Easter for weeks, because we work on those plans months ahead, we had to reinvent Holy Week and Easter in a matter of weeks, trying to find new symbols and signs for what is the most important week of the year for Christians. And we did create new symbol and signs. For Palm Sunday, clearly we had no palms in a traditional sense to bless, but instead we blessed everyone's palms, because after all, some people probably didn't have palms when Jesus rode into Jerusalem, but they all waved anyway. So we blessed palms as a sign of the gift that we bring to God of our hands to continue to create the kingdom. And for Maundy Thursday, where traditionally we would be washing people's feet, we instead turned the symbolism towards helping others in difficult situations. And so we had a short film that showed the Cathedral community at work in social justice in Montreal, and invited people to sign letters for Amnesty International to support people who needed support. Needless to say, it was all quite different, but nevertheless, over Easter, Holy Week, the Triduum, Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter, we had 560 people on our Zoom worship, which, considering the short lead time and all that, was amazing. And certainly the Spirit and the risen Christ was with us throughout that, even as we were going through the Passion and then Resurrection. And what has been most amazing, I guess, is that, of course, some people are missing the Eucharist. We made a choice to not provide an online or virtual Eucharist at present, because we felt it was more important to be together than to have a clergy in a cathedral to do something and for people to be remote. And generally, the feedback we get from the community is that they've never felt closer to one another, because then I can see their faces. They can learn people's names that they didn't know, because of course on Zoom you have people's names on the pictures. And one way or another, and we're also using breakout rooms at the end of our services in order to facilitate coffee time, small group discussions. So we're forcing people to meet people they would never have known, because it's totally randomized by the Zoom system. And all that is helping to create and continue to build community. That sounds a bit breathless, Leanne, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure that, because people are commenting to some of this things, and I want to make sure you hear from them. So, the blessing of the palms is getting a lot of positive response. People are saying, love the blessing of the palms. Someone says you could have blessed their feet, the soles. Also, you have a question from Anderson, who wants to know, what churchmanship would you say you are?
My personal churchmanship, I would describe myself as a modern Catholic. For people who are into labels, I'm a member of the Society of Catholic Priests, which is a Catholic organization in the Church of England, or worldwide now, but which was fully in support of women's ministry in all threefold ministries. And I'm very much in a Catholic tradition, but a Cathedral community is very diverse. So in a way, the choices are not simply for me to make, but to work through with the community. And so in the cathedral, we have people who are dyed-in-the-wool Anglican Canadians. We have many people who come from the US who are, if I say refugees, or at least transfuged from south of the border. We also have people from all sorts of countries and traditions and theological convictions. So our main services, our 3 services on Sunday morning are Eucharistic. We also have a twice a month, we had a twice a month 6 o'clock, not quite alternative service, but it's a service that is more informal, which is also Eucharistic. And the Eucharist plays a big part in the focus of the community. But what was interesting really is that people felt it was more important to support the community through this. And of course, the Anglican bishops at the time supported the idea of a Eucharistic fast, which worked well in the period of Lent towards Easter. And I think that worked. More questions are now arising as to what we are going to do now as we think through what deconfinement might look like, and in particular the fact that many of our parishioners, for one reason or another, are not likely to be leaving their homes anytime soon. And if we start to reoffer some worship in person in the cathedral, we want to continue to maintain community with them. So we're trying to think through what a dual mode worship will look like, i.e. continuing to have Zoom present and to have people in the cathedral when the time comes to know that there are people on Zoom with them. So we're thinking about putting screens so we can see faces. We want to try and include people on Zoom to do the readings that would be heard in the cathedral, intercession. So that's the 2 communities, even though they have different access perhaps to the building, they nevertheless remain one community and worship together in a very visible way.
Okay, thanks for that. I just wanted to just quickly orient you if you're just hopping on. People are always hopping on and off this live broadcast. This is episode number 150 of Live with Leanne. It's our final episode of every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. I've been showing up here 10 o'clock Eastern, and I've been interviewing guests and speaking with people. And this morning I have the Dean of our Christchurch Cathedral, of the Cathedral. Our Bishop, of course, is also here. Thank you for being here, Bishop Mary. And she says that she has never liked coffee hour more than she does now. Interesting. I have to say that, it's really been astounding how many people I've been speaking to, and even through my own observations, who have really been giving testimonials about the increase in attendance, both in children's church and in adult worship and coffee hour type of context. That it seems like we're growing the church. It's been a very interesting phenomenon, given everything we know. Let's talk a little bit about the future. I think that's an appropriate segue. Hi, Shannon. Thanks for saying hi. Definitely do say hi to us. And Anderson wants to know if you have a Beretta.
No. My training parish was a very high Anglo-Catholic parish, and this was where I drew the line, I'm afraid. Beretta is, my own personal background is that I started life as a Roman Catholic in France, and the image of a Beretta is just not one that I associate with myself. My liturgical style and style preferences generally are for a much more pared down look. So I'm very happy with an alb and a stole and some beautiful vestments. I mean, I worked on beautiful vestments at time in parish settings, but the Beretta is not my look, nor where I stand. If that makes any.
I definitely love the question. Wanda says hi to us both, I believe. Hi, Wanda. Thank you for saying hello. All right, so let's talk about the future. Let's talk about, in your opinion, Bertrand, what impact do you think that this pandemic will have on the future of the Anglican Church?
God, let's go for the easy questions. I think there's no doubt that it's a time of challenge, but it's also a time of opportunities. certainly more people have been logging in, at least for those who are confident to log in. And we've picked up some people from as far away as Rimouski and Abitibi-Témiscamingue, for instance, who join us on Sundays, particularly for our Francophone service. And we picked up people from Ottawa for or other places, for our Anglophone services. I think we need to be both excited and open to what that will mean, but also be realistic. So part of the calling of the church is to be grounded in the locality, in the community, and the cathedral. One of the charism of the cathedral is to do that in downtown Montreal, and the challenge, I guess, as there is more digital offering, is that we become disembodied from our locality, and I guess disembodied from our connectedness to the issues and people around us, and to the needs of the world that we can see where we are called to be the people of God, and so the switch to digital could easily mean that we, again, flick through which church is exactly the one that we like, and never have to dirty our hands at anything. And someone in our meeting yesterday, for instance, said one of the wonderful things about a place like Christchurch Cathedral is that you go to worship on a Sunday and you might sit next to someone who's from the street and very smelly, but we are all the people of God together. And when we are all sitting in our own studies, there's no smell, no difference. And by and large, we tend to be people like one another. Then we are not confronted with diversity and difficulties of being the people of God together. Mm. So I would say that there are, certainly real signs of opportunities, but also we mustn't lose track that we are meant to be embodied and incarnated in the world, and so how we will be able to bridge those two things is one question that I'm sure theologians will spend much time in the coming months and years. The second challenge and opportunity, but challenge also for us, as I think I've mentioned already, is how we make sure that everyone who is part of the community continues to feel supported and included. So looking at how we develop our worship to reflect that and to bring everyone along as we can, or those who want to, is going to be a challenge. Thankfully, technology is a lot cheaper than it used to be, so I think we can manage that switch fairly easily, but it needs to be thought through, and people will need to be reassured that, even if you're over 70 and you don't want to expose yourself to anything, you still matter, and we're making a great deal of effort to bring you along, as well as the immunocompromised people who are much younger, or people of all sorts of issues. Sorry about my phone, which I should have tapped that. And then the question, wider question will be question of theology on the Eucharist, for instance, where hopefully people will be able to have dialogues or multi-logs where we can come to perhaps a diversity of opinions as to what is right or not right. And after all, the Anglican Communion has been, or the Church of England when it was founded, and then the Anglican Communion as it evolved, was a place where people were not bound together by same understanding of common doctrines, but in fact by the sense that they could pray together even if they had doctrinal differences. And we are confronted with a time of challenge when we don't know what the Eucharist, which was foundational for us, will look like or can be like, whether it can even be safe for the foreseeable future. And what will it mean to explore an online Eucharist, or what will it mean to have a mixed mode Eucharist both on the altar and on people's tables, for instance? There are a lot of questions to be explored and examined, and people at the very high end or the very low end of the spectrum in the spread of the Anglican understandings will bristle at one idea or the other. But I think we'll need to have kind of both order and charity as amongst ourselves about ways in which we, as communities, decide to express our Eucharistic understanding and our sense of being the Eucharistic body of Christ. So that's another challenge, really, and possibly another question that might end up creating tension and talks of schisms and all sorts of other things, because people love to differ and disagree. But I think that is maybe a difficult question. Hopefully, in the generosity of the current times, perhaps not. But I suspect when I look at Facebook and other bloggers that there will be daggers drawn soon.
I'll read you a comment from Karen. She says, yes, our incarnate Lord calls us to be the Lord's incarnate love in our world through the body of Christ. We in the Anglican Church are challenged anew and reimagining church today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know there are, and inhabiting the online world, and I choose my words carefully also. We're not virtual because we exist. So we exist online. We're not a virtual community. We're an online community. We're not something that doesn't exist. So we are embodied where we are, and we communicate via technology. So we remain incarnated in our own places of being, and we are resourced by our gathering together online. And so the question for us as Anglicans and for all Christians will be how we resource ourselves, support ourselves, and energize ourselves to continue to embody our Lord wherever we may be and however we are called to be.
So thank you for that, and thank you all for hopping on. I see a number of people are still hopping on and off. We are, of course, live here on Facebook this morning. This is episode of 150 of Live with Leanne. This is the final episode of this sort of broadcast thing that I've been doing every Tuesday morning at 10 for quite some time.
What do you mean? Not a broadcast thing, Leanne, a fabulous program that has brought together loads of people and challenged them to think new ideas.
That thingamajiggy bob. That's yeah. So Bertrand and Mark wants to know if I'm retiring to Florida, Leanne. Yes, I'm going to cross the border tonight, and I'm going to go to Florida. Caroline appreciates that you've made the distinction between online and virtual. I appreciated that too, Bertrand. That was actually helpful. And I'll read a comment from Jean-Jacques. We're about to start talking about that, Jean-Jacques, but he says, just to tell you how much I appreciated working with you for several years in the Pride Mass at the Cathedral. With your creativity and supportive nature, it was a real joy working with you. You used this venue to promote it as well. Thanks for all your work. I think he's talking to you, and I wanted to say that same thing to you, Bertrand, because we're about to start talking about, because one of the ways that you and I have collaborated together over the past little while was sitting on the Pride Committee. The Pride was formerly called a Pride Mass and now a Pride Service, and now it's going to be something else because we live in a new world than we did last year. But let's talk about your involvement in Pride at the Cathedral. Let's talk about how it's going to look this year, how we predict it's going to look this year, and what keeps you involved. Why is it important to you to be involved in Pride at Cathedral Christchurch?
There's been a long tradition of inclusivity at Christchurch Cathedral, but that's one of the reasons why I came. I became an Anglican, I said earlier on, from moving over from Roman Catholicism in the mid-80s. I became involved in the Anglican Church when I moved to London, Church of England. And this was a time when suddenly I encountered both the idea of the ordination of women, which was like a completely new concept, but tremendously exciting, but also where I encountered supportive, there weren't LGBTQ plus group at the time, but anyway, the equivalent. And in particular, there was a lot of work for gay Christians coming together and challenging the church. And when I was called by God to be ordained, which was quite a surprise to everyone. I had a career in PR and communications before I became ordained, so it was quite a shock to everyone. Although I was at church a lot because I also played the organ, so that's what kept my feet in churches, my feet in hands and hearts. But I saw how much hope I got from the sense of being that I could be fully accepted by God for who I was, or who I am, and that was terribly liberating and life-changing. And I've been sad really that at the moment I was ordained in 1996, the Church of England started to backpedal furiously, and we all know that there's been tremendous progress in many areas, including this area, but nevertheless we all know that it takes very little for the progress to be rolled back, and people who are in position of visibility need to hope to speak out and continue to support, to be visible, support the onward movement of the Spirit in the Church in particular, because we look around the world now, even in this COVID days, some governments are rolling back on trans rights, for instance, and it wouldn't take very much for some governments to roll back on LGBTQ rights. And the Church is forever also being challenged and could easily go back. And so I think we need to occupy the space, we need to be visible, and Pride service, in whatever way, shape and form it happens this year, is an important symbol of that we can come together. Jesus is with us, God loves us, and the Spirit enables us to be his people in the world, or God's people in the world.
So how do you think, I mean, I know we are visioning on this together, and you're the chair of the Pride Service Committee, and I'm one of your humble servants.
Gosh, less of the humble, yeah.
Yes, it's not exactly always my middle name, but we will. How do you predict that we're going to make this come to life this year?
Well, I mean, we've been working. Again, we're trying to look at a mixed mode way of being. We think it's even before all this COVID question, we'd looked at the question as to whether a Eucharist was inclusive enough, because the Eucharist is a particular ritual that is obviously that brings together Christians. But if we're trying to be evangelistic and open up to others, including to dyed-in-the-wool Quebecers who perhaps find religion difficult, perhaps having a mass was not necessarily the most obvious thing to be inclusive. So we're going to try that anyway. But of course, our hand has been led in a different direction. So we're thinking of having some pre-recorded segments, but still embedded within a Zoom coming together, really, because we think coming together is also part of what it's about. So, of course, Pride Week is ostensibly cancelled in Montreal this year, but there will be events, we think virtual events, and so we will be providing a virtual Pride service on the day and time when it would normally have taken place. So Sunday, the 9th of August, if memory serves me well, at 4 o'clock is currently the intention.
You all need to know, if you don't already, that last year, I think, we really raised the bar in terms of how we sort of made the Pride service come to life. We had the Gay Men's Choir on the, what's the word, forecourt?
Forecourt. Before, in front of the cathedral.
In front, okay, that's the layperson's word, and people were from all walks of life were just in awe at this beautiful juxtaposition of the Gay Men's Choir with their rainbow-colored T-shirts in front of the ancient cathedral and the contemporary music.
And our rainbow steps also.
Rainbow steps, ice cream sandwiches, and it was really, really epic. And so it is kind of like a loss that we won't be able to experience that this year. Karen came all the way from, her walk of life in Ontario to Quebec to be with us. So it was really wonderful. We will not be able to reproduce that, but we're definitely hoping to create still something that is, that represents, the spirit of pride, which is, as you explained, so important for us to do as a church.
And I think, Leanne in her communications role was, quite, if I say insistent, I mean that in a right way, in a positive way, that, perhaps it's an opportunity also to have a kind of video capsule that people might watch, and in the full knowledge that if people are going to watch at a different time, they don't want to sit through 50 minutes of people praying. That's a bit tedious. No. But they might watch a 10-minute or 15-minute thing. So a carefully curated program, as I meant, not thing. But and so that's what we're trying to work on, or we're aiming to work on, so that we have something that is a combination, or serves a combination of purposes.
Yes, so we would love to have you be a part of it, however that looks. There will be a Facebook event, and there will be, of course, some type of video montage. We'll be communicating all about that all over the Cathedral page and over my pages and stuff. So please keep your eyes open, because we'd love to have you be a part of our digital Pride service this year through the Cathedral. And hats off to everyone who makes that happen every year, because it's a big deal. And especially hats off to you, Bertrand, because you really, you're a pleasure to work with. And I just love the way you made it happen last year and the year before. So let's talk about a little bit about me. Enough of this humility thing. This is of course, my last episode of Live with Leanne. I've invited Bertrand to be here because I thought it would be special for, you've been on Live with Leanne a couple of times before talking about pride, and also when you first came to Montreal. So I'm just glad to have you, I think, for the third time. But I wanted to know, because I respect you and I respect your opinion. I wanted to know if you could give me, what advice would you give me as I'm about to close this particular chapter of my ministry? I sent you these questions in advance, Bertrand. You should know.
I'd forgotten that one. In truth, I probably didn't have much time to work on any of that. But I think it's obviously very good and always difficult to bring something that is successful to an end. So I think I would salute you for making that step, because that's a big thing. But the Spirit is at work in us all the time, and opens new doors and new avenues for ministry. And I think your Live with Leanne has been tremendously energizing for a lot of people. And you have a faithful followers who gather and listen to you primarily, and then to those people you've invited. That's but you create good links with people, and that's also been evidenced in the Supper Club. And so I'm sure that as you sit and consider where your strength lies and where the needs are, you will come up with the next thing that will tantalize and energize and bring creativity and humor and make God and Jesus very human in the midst of us, really. So I have great faith, Leanne, that you can rise to that challenge.
Thank you so much. Jen, thanks for that. Jen says, change is good. And Leanne, you'll create something else that will be amazing and refreshing. That is certainly the hope. I have had a chance to interview primates and bishops and countless clergy and lay people, and that is not in any kind of hierarchical order, because you've all been invaluable to this conversation. And honestly, for me, interviewing people has been transformative. It's like there's a transformative power to interviewing people. It can open your heart, and I've learned so much, and God has revealed so much of God's self to me through this format. So it's been spiritually a very transformative experience, and I'm just so grateful that you guys have all had the patience to hang out with me either at Tuesday at 10 or whatever time zone you're in, or later on, or any old time. So just thank you for that. Before I do say goodbye, I want to, of course, let you know that there's a few things still rolling that I want to bring your attention to. Nikki says, hold on, a little bit of shameless flattery from my friend Nikki. Of course, she has a gift for creating community. She'll continue to do that, I'm sure. Thanks, Nikki. And Neil says, you have had people from all over the world participating in your show, from Vancouver to Newfoundland, UK, and even further. Those are lovely comments. Zero doubts that something new and wonderful is in the works from Caroline. Sheila says, you've been a great presence for the church. I can't wait to see what you'll do next. And Karen Leanne, you reached out and have been an excellent presence. The next step will be wonderful. Thank you guys. Lovely. And I really appreciate those comments. And I've gotten a lot of messages in my inbox, and that's been really, really like heartwarming. So thank you for all the private messages from largely across Canada. Kelly Ripple, look out. Yes, Carmen, exactly. Kelly Ripple, look out. But of course, Supper Club is still carrying on. We have 3 more Supper Clubs, and we are back on the Rachel Held Evans train, you guys. We've been doing, we've been praying together every Monday during this pandemic. We have been sharing prayer practices, coming together, listening to each other, finding out how we pray, finding out what stops us, what blocks us from praying. It has been amazing just to pray together. And, you know, I won't reveal too much because those are not my stories to tell, but Supper Club has just been really an anchor for my faith throughout this pandemic. So I'm so grateful for that. Quickly, I read a comment from my brother. He says, I may be somewhat biased, but I think you've done a great deal to bring the work of the diocese into people's homes, and you've helped make faith relevant through your timely coverage of a wide range of subjects. While I congratulate you on 150, I am so saddened that it's coming to an end. I fear our diocese may be diminished as a result. There will be other ways that I will continue to communicate the good news here. That is not going to ever stop. I'm just stopping doing it this way, but thank you for that. So this is happening. If you haven't read Rachel Held Evans' book, Inspired, we're on the last 3 chapters because we have 3 more weeks to go. So check out this book and join us. Rob Cook is here from Newfoundland. He's also doing a book study on Inspired, because Rob Cook and I are kind of kindred spirits in ministry. And we've been talking a bit, and he was on the show a couple weeks ago. So that's happening. Friday morning, we're doing a series on connecting with, engaging with children and youth online. That's 6 weeks. We started last week. People from all across Canada hopped on Zoom. It was brilliant. First week was brilliant, and this week is going to be brilliant again. This is an opportunity for you guys to come and we're going to start going into small groups, maybe using those, what do you call those little like, breakout rooms. Yeah, breakout rooms. So we can help to collaborate and find better ways of connecting with children and youth online. That's happening every Friday morning. If you want to be in on that, reach out to me, because I'm going to give you the Zoom link because it's private. And otherwise, I want to thank Ardith, who's been like here always at the front desk usually, or in her home now, putting links to our conversations, helping to support, bring attention to all the good stuff that's been happening. Ardith put a link to what's happening at the Cathedral. I want to thank you guys for just for being so kind to me, and for being so generous with your time. I know there's a saturation, especially now, of digital content. So I'm going to take this away from you. You've got one less thing to watch. I want you to spend Tuesday mornings, hopefully, in prayer and outside with God, and just enjoying the world that we have right now. I think it's also a season of of nature. So here in Canada, anyway, we have this beautiful blessing of springtime. So I encourage you to be blessed by all that God is giving us. And I didn't cry. So that's great, because I cried earlier. So that's awesome. Thanks for you didn't say anything too sentimental, because I can easily go there. Bertrand, thank you very much, my friend.
Not at all. It was a real pleasure to be here on this very auspicious day of the renewal and recreation of Leanne.
Yes. Congratulations on 150 from Douglas Beck. Thank you. Ardith Rocks from Sheila. Yay, Artie. Lots of shout outs and kudos to Artie, and to all of you, the hashtag Live with Leanne viewers. Definitely share this video. Use the hashtag Live with Leanne. Well done from our Bishop, Mary. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Couldn't have done it without you, of course, Mary, for, of course, being the bishop that you are, and always encouraging creativity. Leanne's a gift of the diocese, and Nikki, thank you. Bertrand, you are great too. That's for absolutely sure. You're all great. You're all wonderful. And may God bless you all so richly. And Bertrand, I think you and I are meeting next week to get back on the Pride Mass.
That's correct. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Over and out. 150 episodes. We'll see you in some other way, in some other time. But thanks for those hearts and thumbs ups. You guys are the best. You have, from Rob, you've made a huge positive progressive impact on the Church of Canada. Great team at the diocese, says Mary. Absolutely. Everything's a team effort. You guys are the best. God bless. Thanks, Bertrand. I'll sign us off.